Alright, we're going to start off with building supply depot and then sending our Warthog down to the base to go scout. Then we're going to build 2 more supply pads, and normally I like to put my reactor and my other important buildings in the back of the base here. So while our Warthog collects resources, we're going to go back and forth between the two. We can do that by pressing left cursor or left cursor button. That's the pad on the controller. Takes you to your base. Down on the pad takes you to your vehicles. If you continue clicking down, it'll cycle through your vehicles. We're not building any infantry, so all we're having is vehicles in this one. We'll get at the reactor, kicking in the back, and we got to collect our second node of resources here. In this build order, you have to collect at least 2 nodes of resources here in order to do it effectively. So make sure you know where they are. If not, you got to scout them out and find them out. You got about a minute and a half to be able to find 2 things of resources. What I'm doing right now is I'm sending my scout to go look and see what he's building by adding waypoints. To add waypoints, you click one spot with the X like you would normally, and then for each spot after that, you hold X down for a little while until it registers to click. And then see, I'm not telling him to move anywhere, but you notice he's moving around on the circular path that I told him to move before, and that's going to give us a good scouting chance to look at the base. And I don't have to manage the Warthog while he's moving around, which is good. So I can check out what buildings he has there while he's moving around. Or I can go back to my base and build more things. Now that my fortress is done being upgraded, I need to collect that 500 minerals that I need to build the second reactor. And so while I wait for that, I'm going to hover over my base and go between that and the Warthog to ensure that I don't lose any building time. You notice that I'll have just enough money and time to build that reactor before that last one finishes building. That's because I collected 2 nodes.
Reactor complete.
Rolling. We're going. Let's go.
Alright, so now that we've got the second reactor coming in, the next building on our list is going to be the vehicle depot. And it's very important that we have a building at the base at every moment. We don't want to waste any time getting this up and running because it's already kind of a later build. You know, if you're getting rushed by something, you're going to want to close your fortress and let the tanks out when you have 2 of them. But typically, the earliest they'll come with is they may use a profit rush. You can send 1 tank out to destroy a profit by using juking. And I'll explain that later in this video, what juking is and how you can do it, and how you use it effectively in combat. So we're still collecting more supplies while we build our buildings and base. The vehicle depot is coming in. As you see, he's scouting my base, which is very typical among good players.
Enemy engagement.
And now that the vehicle depot is almost done, I get my first tank roll. This is under 3 minutes. Got a first tank coming out of the base, and the tank's pretty formidable. Now I'm setting my rally point in my tank near the first enemy base up here. The reason I do that is I want my tank to take out that expansion so that I can expand to it later, but more importantly I want my tank to pick up veteran status. If I take out that entire base with just 1 tank, he'll grab a star, which increases his damage by 15% and reduces the damage that he receives by 15%. So veterancy is very important in this game. Getting free veterancy without having to fight the enemy is always nice, and because these units do very little damage to the tank, it's almost at no cost. And so I'm also building more tanks while this tank is out there, and so by the time I'm attacking with 1 veteran tank and 2 regular tanks. I'm sending the Warthog back to the base to go scout and see if there's anything new there. And now I'm going to get the tank to go take out this base over here. One of the tricks with these bases, they're really weak against tanks. And so if you don't pay attention, the tank can take out the base before you get a chance to destroy the towers. So you have to destroy the towers individually before you take the base out, or else you won't get all the experience you need to get the full star. One of the things you can do with the tank in order to ensure that this happens is, it's also part of the juking technique, but you click X on a target, and then you move the tank, and the tank will still continue to shoot at the unit as it moves to its next position, as you notice here. Now the tank is easily decimating these units here. I'm going to click on the tower next, and then I'm going to get him moving around and make sure that he's around to attack the next turret as soon as that one's done, so I get all the turrets killed. Continuing to produce tanks.
Where to? Ready.
And once that's done, he's going to take out the base here, and he's going to get his star. Now we've got those 3 tanks, and we're ready to go check them out. Make sure you always have tanks queued. Tanks take a long time to build. You want to have them queued at all times, or else you're really going to get behind. You've got to stay on it. Don't forget to use your left cursor and down cursor to move between units and your bases, so that you don't have to spend time scrolling across the screen. Get my Warthog to move around. If you notice, you'll see that I'm using the right button to select units, or my right trigger, and that allows you to select single unit types in a large group selection. Now, what you see in here is a big problem. Okay, we're seeing a Prophet, we're seeing him using the laser, and we see a couple units to kind of tank for the Prophet while the Prophet kills the tanks. We've also got some air units, which are pretty good counters for vehicles actually. But what I'm doing here is juking. You'll notice that I'm moving my tanks around, and by moving my tanks around I can keep them alive, because they're still shooting their targets, but at the same time their targets are missing them, even though the tanks are hitting their targets, because he's not moving his units around as much. You'll notice that I've used the tanks to kill almost all these units here and sustain very minor damage. And against a couple Banshees, tanks do not have problems. If they are able to build a substantial amount of Banshees, you're going to attack to a second reactor quicker, so you can get Wolverines, which very easily counter that strategy. We're going to take out his leader first, and then we're going to move on to the Banshee. The leader takes a long time to come back, so we've got a little while to destroy the temple before we have to worry about him being a threat again. Now these tanks are going to stay here and leave pressure on the base. I'm going to continue to build tanks. I'm going to set the rally point for the tanks in the enemy base just to ensure that they go where I need them to go. Right now I'm going to see if they're expanding down here. I'm going to pick up this expansion real quick because I forgot to pick up the expansion earlier. And I'm going to make sure that I keep this pressure on him while he's there and repair damaged tanks with my heal ability. Now another thing I like to do is I put my tanks near the entrance to the base, and I do this because if the enemy has a rally point, their unit's going to want to run around to that rally point, and sometimes they get all clogged up by the tanks that are in their way, and so they're running around trying to figure out how to get to the rally point that the base is set to. Okay, while you're just getting free shots on them, and so it's called port blocking. And so I use port blocking when I'm all up in their base with the tanks. Works really well. Make sure you keep tanks in production, and you should be pretty solid. At this point, you can pretty much tell that the game's in the bag. But you never know, he could have another base. I doubt it because he had a lot of units, but we'll find out in a little while. And you know, if I was seeing all these tanks in my base and they're taking out everything that I could build instantly, I would probably quit by now. And their shields are down now. So the first thing I'm going to do is, now that the shields are down, is I'm going to take out his unit producing buildings. He's much less of a threat if he can't build buildings to make units. So I take the Banshee building out first, because Banshees are the largest threat that I have, because they can take out vehicles pretty well. And then I'm going to take out the temple, because I don't want him to put that leader. Leaders take a long time to build, as you've noticed. He still doesn't have his leader, although it's been training the entire time. And I think I'm going to get the temple down before his leader comes out. Those other ground units that are running around, they're a very minor threat. They do minimal damage to the tanks, and I want to make sure I get this temple down, so I'm going to ignore them for a little while. I want to get a reactor here at my second base so I can start producing Wolverines or higher tech units, and so that I can purchase the shell upgrade for the tanks. Well, this is about the end of the tutorial, and I hope you've enjoyed it and learned how to play the game a little bit better. He did have an expansion, and I took it out, but it wasn't too difficult. If you have any questions, you can comment this video and let me know if you want me to write tutorials for other races or other build orders. I'll be making many more tutorials in the future, and I hope you enjoyed watching this one.
Station upgrade complete.